Hi, it's Mark Sinkowitz, and welcome to a special series of SeedWorld podcast episodes. We'll be covering this year's virtual annual meeting of the National Association of Plant Breeders, which takes place August 15th to 19th, 2021. A variety of awards will be handed out this year, including the NAPB Private Sector Plant Breeding Impact Award, which will go to Dr. Thomas Osborn. Tom is currently the head of global analytics and pipeline design for vegetable R&D at Bayer Crop Science in St. Louis. He leads a team of scientists and engineers that brings new insights and capabilities to the vegetable breeding pipeline using predictive analytics, accelerated breeding methods, and advanced genomic and plant phenotyping technologies. I sat down with Tom to talk about his work, his award, and the future of plant breeding in the vegetable seed space. Enjoy our chat.
I got interested in biology as a very young person, plants in particular, and I didn't grow up on a farm, but I was exposed to a lot of sort of horticultural plant experiences, and I did go to undergrad in horticulture at University of Wisconsin. I thought I might go into the ornamental business, but did some early job experience and decided that might not be where I want to go, and pretty quickly got interested in genetics. I took a genetics course. I actually took a fly course, fruit fly, and I was fascinated by it. And I said, man, I want to do this with plants. And I got hooked up with somebody at Wisconsin, Paul Williams, and worked on fast plants as an undergrad. And that hooked me. I was just set on doing genetics and plants after that, and went to grad school at Wisconsin. I left and did a postdoc in California. This was about the time that molecular breeding was really starting to break. And I did a postdoc in that area using molecular markers in tomato, and realized how important that technology was going to become. And I got offered an academic role back at Wisconsin and entered the agronomy department, and I set up a experimental research program in molecular breeding, and worked on a few different crops there, developing new germplasm with new traits using molecular markers, and also studied polyploidy, which is a sort of unique phenomenon, especially in plants. But many of our plants are polyploids, multiple chromosome sets. So I studied that for a while. And I was there for about 20 years, had quite a nice career, and developed quite a program there. And at that point in my life, I decided to do something different. And I made the move into a company called Seminis, which was a vegetable seed company in California. So we moved out there and started working there. And shortly after, Monsanto acquired Seminis. So I became a part of the Monsanto company through that acquisition. And of course, more recently, Bayer has acquired Monsanto. So now I'm part of Bayer. So I've been with the same company, but moved around a little bit within the company. So I was in vegetables out there. I moved to St. Louis, and I led the genotyping lab in St. Louis, several labs, actually global labs that do the genotyping for all of the crops. I did that for about 10 years. And then in the last few years, I moved back into vegetables. I'm still in St. Louis, but working again in the vegetable business. And what I'm doing now is leading a group called Analytics and Pipeline Design. Actually just announced that I'm taking a new role in an area called product design. But by the description of those titles, you can tell where we are migrating to in breeding. We're migrating more and more to a design concept for creating new varieties. And I guess that's what I'm most excited about in terms of how the field has evolved and watching how it's changed over the years and where we're at today is pretty amazing to see how far we've come in such a short time.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the topic of seed innovation is always top of mind for us as Seed World, as I know it obviously is for you. And what's number one on your radar right now with regards to vegetable seed innovation?
I think that one of the big things is I think in vegetables we're in the process of um, of transforming how we work. Um, and it says transformation that maybe at least in our company the row crops have already are well on that transformation, and we're a little bit behind it. And I think in vegetables it's a little more difficult to make that simply because we have so many crops we're dealing with, and really different biologies of the crops and different targets, breeding targets we're going after in the different crops. And so as you bring in new technologies, the challenge is how do you implement those in so many different pipelines and different what are today very different workflows. So it means really getting people to work in new ways and using new technologies kind of in a more systematic and uniform way across our different crops, which is hard, but possible. And I see that as sort of it's a big opportunity though to make this switch where we're leveraging many more of these technologies much more effectively and speeding up our breeding cycles, just yeah, delivering I think much more in terms of the product innovation through these technologies. But we do have to make some changes in how we work to make that happen. So that's a big thing that's on my mind right now.
Now, you are receiving a new award for NAPB. This is the Private Sector Plant Breeding Award. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with NAPB over the years and why you decided to be involved?
Well, I have to admit, I don't have a long history of involvement with NAPB. Our company does, and we've had many people that have been involved with the organization. And they were the ones that my colleagues in the company were the ones that drew me to it, and really pointed out that it would be valuable for me to participate both for the company and potentially for NAPB. Especially as we think about moving to this new way of working and the need to really bring the whole industry along, including our academic partners and the way students are trained, and how they get prepared for doing work in industry. So yeah, that's what really drew me to it. And as I say, it's rather recent, so I don't have a long history.
The NAPB is going to be giving out 24 Borlaug scholarships this year to young people just starting out in the industry. For you, what makes the ideal vegetable seed breeder?
Hmm. Wow. Well, it's got to start with passion for what they do, and that passion may be around the field of breeding itself. I think they have to have a passion for genetics and breeding itself. But I think it also helps if they have a passion for vegetables or making new products that consumers want. And I think a real appreciation for that sort of complexity of the things that we deal with in vegetables and all the nuances, and really a joy of working with that, and working with the diversity. You think about all the different crops we work with and the diversity within those crops and all the different things you can do and how they get utilized in so many different ways. It's just fascinating the levels of diversity we deal with. And I look for people that have a huge passion for that. And I guess the other element that's important is the interest in innovation and new technology to create those innovations. And how do you bring that into a process and and use it to really change how you do the work and in order to speed up our innovation and making better innovations. So those would be the two things that are important. I don't look so much for specific discipline training. I look for people who've been broadly trained and been exposed to different things and have taken courses in a number of areas, and people who are really lifelong learners and interested in continuing to learn in many different areas, because that's what we need going forward. The world is not static, and technologies keep changing. And if you come in with a fixed set of knowledge on technologies and you don't evolve, then you'll quickly be outpaced. So we need people who are willing to continue to learn.
I was reading some of the comments that your colleagues have given about you, and what really struck me is your ability to lead. One of your colleagues said that you inspire, empower, and develop your team for passionate execution. Tom is motivated by achieving collective understanding and a sense of mission. How do you go about doing that? What's your secret to motivating people like that?
One of the at one point in my career, I was leading a large organization. This was the genetics and the genotyping group. What at that point in my career, I hadn't led such a large group, diverse group. I had mostly smaller groups I had led in my lab in Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, or at my first jobs in the industry. So with that large group, what I realized at some point, and I've always had a passion for understanding problems, and I think I really drove that passion with my students as well, and the smaller groups that I worked with, and often it was focused on sort of narrow topics, and so we could relate to each other pretty easily. It wasn't that difficult, I think, to sort of get that collective understanding and passion around certain topics. But with this big group, I realized that I knew where we were going, where we needed to go. I knew ways that we could get there, but I wasn't necessarily connecting with everybody in the organization to have that same level of understanding. And so we as a group, I think we all, myself and my leaders discussed this. We realized that we needed to do some work to really change the culture of the organization. And so we pushed forward with a real initiative with a catchphrase. One of the catchphrases was "ensure understanding." And I always told the organization that was my favorite phrase of the half dozen or so that we developed for our culture, because it was so essential to have that to even get started. If you didn't have the understanding, you didn't ensure the understanding, people weren't going to get on board. They weren't going to follow where you were going or understand why we had to go there. And so we really, really pushed on that and did a lot of work to make sure that people did understand the logic of why we had to make certain changes, why we were going in certain directions. We did that with partners too. If people came to us and say, "Oh, we need you to do X, Y, or Z," we start with, "Well, help us understand what's behind this. Why do we need to go that direction?" And always with good intent, right? This wasn't about pushing back, or this was really about making sure everyone was clear on what's most important, so you could really drive the right outcomes. So that's just a little bit of the description of the journey I've been through with this. And so now I realized with that big group experience how important and difficult it is as you get into bigger and bigger organizations to make that work. And so I've become very, very conscious and with a lot of intent to be focused on that, to make sure people do understand what's behind what we're doing. It's really important.
For more great podcasts, visit seedworld.com.